Hi, guys, and welcome to my first episode of Military Spouse to Millionaire. When I say it has been a journey to get here, let me just tell you, it has probably taken me, 3 months to get over myself, to get over sort of the narcissism that we all feel. Well, at least I felt when putting together a product like this. I so very much want this to be an impactful platform for me to reach people, and all of the bullshit that came crashing down on me as far as it has to be perfect. I can't stutter. My dog can't bark. If an airplane flies overhead, I'm ruined for the day. Me just accidentally hitting the microphone. If you're watching this online, like all of these things have been absolutely killing me. But at the end of the day, actually just as recently as like 2 days ago, I decided to get over my fucking self and all of the bullshit and all the excuses that I'm giving myself to not jump in and do this, maybe for fear that it doesn't succeed or it's not well received or whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel fucking passionate that I have some important things to share with people, and I share them with people every day in one-on-one client calls, in in-person meetings, in mentor sessions, in house hunting. So I guess I just want to start off by talking to people who shouldn't be here, because I'm not in the business of wasting anyone's time. If you are someone that wants a polished, perfect, just purely aesthetic thing to watch or listen to, this probably isn't for you. You can keep scrolling, you can tune out, sign off. Thanks for stopping by. Other people who probably shouldn't waste their time here: if you are a military family, if you are a service member, if you're affiliated with any branch of the armed service in any way, and you are okay with continuing to stick your head or have your head in the sand over the fact that we get hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax-free entitlements that you could be investing in yourself via home ownership, but you're fine with giving yourself excuse after excuse, like I had been doing with this podcast, to rent or to live on post, or to not even at least take the opportunity to see what home ownership and that process might be like. If you are fine just continuing to ignore the fact that 90% of wealthy Americans make their money one way, and that is through real estate, if you're fine just ignoring that, you shouldn't be here, because we are going to talk about how awesome real estate investing is and how many people, myself included, have really, really personally and professionally benefited from that endeavor. That being said, buying a home is not for everyone. In my business model, I do help military families rent, both if they can't buy, find rentals. I help people rent their homes if they don't want to sell them. So I am not a one-trick pony. This is not about hounding you to buy a house. This is about opening your eyes to being at least halfway willing to listen to why 90% of wealthy Americans are making their money this way. So if you're not open to that, keep on going. There are lots of other sites out there that can talk to you about renting and paying someone else's mortgage and paying for someone else's lifestyle and living on post with the bugs and the mold and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for stopping by. If you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, whether you're a military spouse who runs a business or just an entrepreneur out there in the world, or a business person wanting professional development, but you don't want to be open-minded about a growth mindset and just really there not being any substitution for good old-fashioned hard work, this is also not the podcast or the platform for you. If you are offended by swearing and a little bit of no bullshit, no nonsense, come to Jesus style conversations, this is not for you. I am utilizing this platform finally as a way to get around moderators in Facebook groups. Over the last 7 years, I've grown my entire real estate business here in Hawaii from nothing. Now I do about 100 transactions a year. I didn't my first couple of years because obviously I was just starting out. So I did the average the other day and it came out to about 70 transactions a year average for the 7 years that I've been doing this. So still puts me, very high up there as far as rankings go of the 10,000 real estate agents that are on this island. All of that to say, this episode is going to be talking about, and is even titled, who am I and why the hell you should listen to me? Because I feel like that's important. And that's coming from my background in the social media pages and being so heavily regulated by moderators and rules and things on Facebook that I understand are there for a reason, and that's a different platform, and I have no problem operating within the limits and rules of that platform. But this is meant to be a platform for me to truly and unapologetically speak my mind and share information and share my stories and share success stories from my clients and talk about getting into real estate if that's what you want to do and all that sort of kind of content. So if you're not here for just open, unapologetic dialogue, again, not for you. Now that we've gotten through all of the people who shouldn't be here and we've weeded through, and now any of you remaining are kind of my target audience, or at least people that I'm excited to be sharing my message with. If you're a military family or anybody affiliated with the military spouse, family member, whatever, and you are very curious about, hey, I'm coming to Hawaii. I did the math. I'm going to be getting over $100,000 of BAH. Let's talk about maybe what I can do with that. And not just Hawaii, but anywhere. We get, as military families, like I said, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can't even do the math. My husband did 22 and a half years in the Army. I really should sit down and do the math and calculate how much BAH he got over his career. We're here to talk about how you can invest that in yourself because like I say in the intro to this podcast, if you think a military retirement, even after 22 years and disability, is going to be enough for you to live on comfortably without feeling like you're living on a fixed income, I'm on the other side of that journey, and I can tell you that you are wrong. If we did not have passive income, rental incomes, real estate investing, dividends that we get, you guys, we would not be living the most comfortable life that we could be living after my husband's military service. So if you are someone who is interested in getting the most juice out of that squeeze and utilizing those entitlements, you are my target demographic. You are who I want to be speaking with. If you're an entrepreneur or a business person that wants to know how I started this business from nothing and in one of the most aggressive, competitive real estate markets in the US, I would say, I am thriving. I am here to share all of that with you. My number one promise to you guys is that I do not gatekeep. I am doing this because I am not tired. Tired's not the right word. I enjoy my one-on-one conversations with people very much, but I am at a place where I am not done growing this yet. I want to reach more people. I want to influence more lives. I want to be that person that people can look to or reach out to and say, like, you did this, how can I do this? And I'm not going to gatekeep because at the end of the day, I have mentored many people and I have given them my secret sauce, I did this, I did that. Here's my packet. Here's my information. And you know what? They're still not as successful as me. They were not able to duplicate and replicate what I've done. And that is because they were not willing to work as hard as I've worked. And while all the tools that I can provide you and mentorship calls I can have with you, if you're not willing to put in the level of work that I put in, the days, the nights, the weekends, the pulling my hairs out, the successes, the failures, the tears of sadness and tears of joy, that is what I can't give to you. I can tell you that it's important and I can try to keep you excited when you fail or fall down. I can give you tools that are tangible tools to help, whether you're in real estate or not. A lot of what I do is obviously sales-based, marketing-based, and that is applicable to a lot of different industries. So yes, I'm a real estate agent. Yes, I have a passion for getting other military families into real estate. I really want to talk to people. If you're someone who is thinking about getting into real estate professionally, maybe you're a service member getting out, or you're a military spouse that views real estate as a profession that you can take with you whenever you go somewhere, I am here to help with that. I won't gatekeep because I have learned over my years of doing this, I can give people these resources that doesn't threaten me. I'm not worried that I'm going to teach you what I know and then I'm not going to have any more business because I don't operate from a place of a scarcity mindset. I know that I have what it takes to be successful, to grow a business from nothing, to thrive, to be a top 20 agent out of, 10,000. So that's why I want this platform. And that's why I want to be very, selective or just very transparent about the people that should be listening to me, that I'm here to help, that I want to engage with. Anything and everything to do with real estate, that's what I'm here for. Whether you're getting into it as an investor, you're just buying a personal home, you want to get into real estate professionally as a real estate agent, a mortgage person, a title company person. I will have people on occasionally with me. My husband, if I can convince him, he's a mortgage broker. After his time in the military, he transitioned into being a mortgage broker, and now he and I work together. This is the way, guys. This is the way. And it's what we've done. So now that we've established who shouldn't be here, who should be here, talked about my narcissistic fears about even getting this fucking thing started. Now, let's talk a little bit more about who I am and why the hell you should listen to me. And I wanted to share this, obviously, episode 1, because it's very much my origin story, so to speak. And we really have to go back about 15 years, and we have to go back to Fort Carson, Colorado, or really Fort Lewis, Washington, if we're being like really going way back. So we were stationed at Fort Lewis a million years ago. It was probably 2008, and my husband was deployed, and he calls me from a satellite phone because it was 2008 and we still had Yahoo Instant Messenger, with like the bubbles where you could just see someone was typing. He couldn't text me on his phone. He didn't have like a cell phone to call me. They had like satellite phones. I got a phone call like once a week. If you know, if you're a seasoned military spouse and you went through deployments in that time, But he called me, and it was the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. for me. And he's like, Kenny, when we move to Colorado, we're buying a house. And I'm like, you literally called me in the middle of the night from Iraq on a satellite phone. I'm expecting to hear explosions or like sirens or like whatever. And we're buying a house. And he's like, yes. I'm like, okay, good night. He came home. We moved to Colorado. We did, in fact, buy our first house. It was 2009. We got our keys on Christmas Eve, 2009, which, let me tell you, to all of you people out there that have ever come at me and been concerned, or what about that housing market crash? People, I bought a house, my first house in December of 2009. Just a quick refresher, the housing market crash happened 2007, 2008. So we were still very much reeling from the crisis that was the housing market crash. And I will have an episode, a whole podcast dedicated to the housing market crash and why we are very unlikely to see that again and what actually caused it, because that's a thing that continuously needs to be talked about, needs to be cleared up. I won't get into that now. We will talk about that later, maybe episode 3 or 4, because I already have a few of these, planned out, scripts written that I'll probably go way off of, because again, I've abandoned the whole model of this needs to be some sort of polished, perfect thing. This is just going to be me rambling on camera to you guys. So we got our house, and it was 2009, and we did get it as a short sale from somebody who couldn't pay their mortgage and had to sell their house short sale. And we got a hell of a deal. And was it scary? Absolutely. I was still in my 20s. We had a 3-year-old daughter. We were military. We weren't going to be in Colorado very long. It was just a, 3-year tour, et cetera, all the things. So we get our keys Christmas Eve day, and I love this story because it really set up what is now a 15-year-long tradition in my family, in my household. So we got our keys Christmas Eve morning. We had nothing. Our household goods weren't coming until obviously after the holiday. And so what do? We go to the PX and we get an air mattress. We get a DVD player, a TV, a white Christmas tree, because we had always wanted one, a few ornaments, and we head back to our new house with those things. We blew up the air mattress, set up the TV, hooked up the DVD player. We bought a few DVDs, one of which was Jim Carrey's A Christmas Carol. We put up our tree, decorated it, ordered some food, and we camped out in our living room of our first house with our tree. And that was so special to us. Our daughter loved it. She literally slept under the tree. It was just so cool. It was a very cool memory. And especially now that our daughter is, she just turned 18. She is leaving in about a month to join the Air Force. She's already sworn in. She's going to basic training next month on the 17th, which is wild to think about. But for the last 15 years, every year, my family has put up our tree and slept in our living room and watched A Christmas Carol and slept on an air mattress. And that tradition that has had so many happy memories over the years for my family stemmed from that. And I'm going to talk a lot in this podcast about the financial benefits of home ownership, and that's very important. But owning your own home, like owning something that's yours, where your family makes its memories and has its holidays and all of those things, owning it feels different than buying it or than renting it. And that's not something that's talked about a lot. But had we not, purchased our home and had those set of circumstances, maybe we never would have had that tradition. And I can't tell you over the last 15 years how many happy memories have been created because of that tradition. And that's just fundamentally, when I think of home ownership, that is a very profound memory for me. And it just sort of starts our journey. So we're in our first house. We're at Fort Carson. We're there, 2010, 2011. Again, Clayton calls me. I'm at work. He calls me and says, "Hey, we have the chance to go to Germany. Do you want to go to Germany?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I want to go to Germany." Like, who says no to that, right? It's once in a lifetime. And I didn't sign up to be a military spouse to, sit in one duty station forever. I was raised military. For those of you who don't know, my dad was career force. My grandfather was in the military. My husband's parents were both Navy. As I just mentioned, our daughter is joining the Air Force. So we live, eat, sleep, breathe. We're raised, lived our whole lives in the military lifestyle. This is what we know and love. So of course I jumped at it. I was like, hell yeah. So we go to Germany. So 2012, we moved to Germany. We didn't want to sell the house in Colorado because we really loved it there. We were hoping that we would get to go back. So we kept it. And this started our first, entry into being landlords, into being property owners that rented their property. And initially, we just broke even, which was fine because someone else was still paying down our mortgage, our investment. I had no issues with that. We moved to Germany. We're there 2012, 2013. My husband's unit got deactivated. We were in Baumholder. They gave us a chance to do a COT. If you're not military, consecutive overseas tour. And we moved over to Hohenfels, where he was an OC. We stayed for about another year and a half. So we're now 12, 13, 14. So we're 2015. And we're starting to talk about where we want to go back to. This was back in the good old days where you still had to call your branch manager and sort of, hammer out where you were going to go. And by some military miracle, I think because my husband was so close to retirement, he was 17 years in at that time. The branch manager, through whatever strings he had to pull, got us back to Carson. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. We already have a house there. Our daughter can go back to the school. My job that I had at the time was amazing and let me work from home while we were in Germany. So I just got to go back to the office and work. I mean, you guys, shit like that does not happen very often. We were so fortunate. So we pack up, we go back to Colorado. We're in the process of moving back, and our renter says, "Gosh, we just got orders to extend here. We really love your house. You guys have never raised our rent. We're willing to pay a few $100s more," because rents do go up almost every year now that we own multiple properties. And I'll get into that later. And we're kind of better at being landlords, I guess, from the business side of being a landlord. You guys, rents go up. Rents go up every year. Even if my mortgage doesn't go up, I still, as a landlord, most years can raise rents just because that's what the market does. So we were like, shoot, okay. So they did have about a $200 a month rent increase. Mind you, they had been living there for the whole time we were in Germany, and we never raised their rent. So ordinarily you wouldn't see such a large one-time rent increase, but we raised their rent about $200. And in some research that my husband did, he found out that, lo and behold, oh my God, you can actually use your VA loan more than once at a time to buy houses. So we bought a second house right down the road from our first house, a mile and a half away. And so we own this second home. Our daughter goes back to the school that she liked. I went back to work in the office. 2 years goes by. We're now end of 2016, almost 2017. Clayton calls me again and says, "Hey, I just found out that I'm on the list to make E8. And if we stay in for 3 more years, they are offering us Hawaii." Pause for effect, guys. The military, the Army especially, They know what they're doing. They have our number. And just like our adventure into Germany, I was like, well, shit, you can't say no to that. Like, I had come here a ton growing up. I loved Hawaii. I viewed it as a last hurrah, like a 3-year vacation. My job already, let me work from home once. I had no reason to think they wouldn't do it again, et cetera, et cetera. So fine, whatever. Let's pack up and go to Hawaii for 3 years. But that being said, we thought we were going to be staying in Colorado. So we had taken steps to start building our rental portfolio. So we had our primary residence, our previous house that we rented, and then we had a townhouse that we had bought right across from Fort Carson High School. That was just like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, like 1,100 square feet, just good, solid rental property. So we decided to sell the 2 single family homes because we knew that we would have to free up our VA entitlement to move here and to buy a house. Now, this is probably the most pivotal thing that happened in our story. We sold those 2 houses. One we had owned for maybe over 5 years, like almost 6 years. The other we had owned for just like 2, going on 2.5 years, maybe. We sold both of those houses within weeks. I would say less than a month they were in contract and good to go. We made $100,000, which was huge. To go from, I worked, he worked, we're a dual income family. We were always pretty financially well-minded, I would say. So squarely middle class is where I would put us if I'm describing our sort of class, standings or whatever to people. Squarely middle class. We were fine. Having $100,000 suddenly just sitting in your bank account is a crazy feeling. And then to think that we got that $100,000 from just spending our tax-free housing allowance that we would have spent on something, because we have to live somewhere. If we lived on post, they would have taken it all. If we would have rented, maybe we could have pocketed a little bit of it. It's hard to do that here in Hawaii, just FYI, but on the mainland, it's more doable. People do it. But it was nuts. It literally blew my mind. I was like, shit, we have $100,000 in our bank account just chilling because someone else paid our mortgage, or we used our tax-free money to pay for it, and then we got $100,000? Like, what the actual hell? And that is what snapped something inside me and caused me to start asking questions like, why aren't more military families doing this? And that is the very conversation that I had with Clayton, my husband, on the plane ride over here. I was like, what the hell? What the actual hell? And he knew the answer. And he just quickly was like, lack of education. And he proceeded to tell me about how the military will EO train, it will SHARP train, gives safety briefings before every 4-day weekend, but they're not educating service members and their families on the VA loan benefit or finances or things like that, which is crazy because your VA loan is just as much a part of what you earn in the military as your paycheck or your TRICARE or your commissary privileges. You get the VA loan and the ability to buy a house with no money down because you're serving our country. To put it in perspective, especially here in Hawaii, if you're a civilian and you're getting a conventional loan and putting 20% down and you're buying a $500,000 house, honey, you're coming out of pocket $100,000. But if you're a service member and you're buying a house with your VA loan and you're buying a $500,000 house, you're putting no money down because you're serving our country. And to not utilize that benefit, or at least be educated on it, is unacceptable. It's absolutely wild. So we landed here. A week later, I quit my job. I signed up for real estate school. I started my company. I got my license, started my company, and that was in 2017. And it was all very exciting. It was a whirlwind. I had the single-minded focus of, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to talk to and build this business with military spouses on the internet, in these Facebook groups. And while my husband was very, very supportive, he definitely kind of looked at me with a little side eye sometimes when I would tell him, military spouses are the way. Talking to military spouses on these spouse groups is how I'm going to grow this business. And he was like, okay. And I was so gung-ho and I was so passionate and I had just blinders onto everything. And then I cut my license and proceeded to go 6 months without a single deal. No business, no transactions, not even house hunting. Like I didn't even have someone that was interested enough that they would meet with me in person. And you know what's funny? I love telling this story. And it pops up on my Facebook memories every year. And I just die every single time. A quick drink for a beverage. Pause. So I used to post in these Facebook groups, hey guys, I'm a military spouse and realtor, and I'm just so excited to be here in Hawaii and excited to talk to other spouses about buying homes and their VA benefits. And I'm going to be at the Schofield PX Starbucks this Thursday from 1 to 4. If anybody wants to sit down and chat with me, meet with me, I would love to talk to you. And you guys, I would go to the NEX, I would go to Hickam BX, I would go to Schofield PX, and I would sit in like the food court or at Starbucks 4 hours. And not once, ever, ever did somebody come up and talk to me. But that was my hustle, right? That was the reckless abandon that I threw out there. I used to print little postcards with your BAH rates on them. And if I went to the PX or the NEX or whatever, and I saw that you had an out-of-state license plate, which meant that you were new to the island, I would put one of my little postcards with my picture and your BAH chart and my contact information and say, what are you doing with your BAH? And nothing ever came from that either. But those 6 months that I had no business, I wasn't not working. I was doing things like that. I was in those spouse groups trying to get people to engage with me, trying to say things that would solicit a response, that could start a conversation, that could lead to, hey, yes, I'm here to help you with your move. And that's always going to be a fundamental part of my business, but also part of your move is finding a house or finding where you're going to live. Let's talk about that. And then subsequently, let's talk about why aren't you looking at buying a house? And it just took me some time to kind of fine tune the message and what I could say to people to get them to even respond to me and want to talk to me enough to get that far. And so finally, I got my license in October of 2017. It was March of 2018 before I got into and closed my first transaction. But then from March of 2018 through December of 2018, so the rest of that year, I closed 33 transactions. And that changed my life. It changed my husband's lives. It changed my kids' lives. It has changed now over the lives of 500 military families who have trusted me to help them buy and sell homes here, and countless others that have just allowed me to help them with their move, because that is, even if you're not buying a house, I'm still here to help you move. Don't pigeonhole me. I'm not just here to talk about real estate with the people that I find on the Facebook groups. This platform is definitely meant for more real estate talk, but if you're out there and you're hearing this and you do need help with your military move, that is always going to be the foundation of finding home. Finding home is here to help military families. Moving on island, moving off island, getting to know the island, going to your next duty station if you need realtors or lenders, going to other places in the U.S., renovations here in Hawaii or in other states, design idea, like literally anything, we're here. Just reach out to me. If I can't help you, I'll tell you. That's how it all started. When we first moved here, though, let's backtrack a little bit. When we first moved here and we were buying our first house, I was so nervous about the housing market here, you guys. Even though I was actively going to real estate school, I was like, we need to go look at some houses on Post. And that'll be a different episode as well. But I was so nervous, even though I was becoming a realtor and even though I had just made $100,000 in real estate, the housing market here is no joke. It's a lot to get used to. They're smaller, they're more expensive. Everything's closer together. We'll talk about that in a different episode. But we did end up buying our first house here. We owned it for 2.5 years and we sold it and made about $60,000 in profit in 2.5 years. And that was not during COVID, because people are like, oh, COVID, just blah, blah, blah. We bought in 2017. We sold in 2019 before COVID, the end of 2019, and still made that kind of profit. So yes, all the COVID things, again, we'll talk about that in a different episode, but we made that profit. We went on, we bought a second house. We've been here 7 years. We've owned 4 houses in that time, which is just wild to think about, that we've been here 7 years, longest we've ever lived anywhere. During that time, though, we have still continued to build up our property portfolio. So now, as I sit here today, we have 9 rental properties. One of them is here in Hawaii. We have 8 other rental properties in Colorado. And once we got that taste way back in, whatever it was, 2012, 2014, with our tenants living in our first home, once we started to get that taste of, oh, they're not only paying our mortgage, but oh, they're paying $200 extra that we just get to pocket. What can we do with that $200? At the time, that paid my car payment. I had a little Nissan Altima. That thing was like a $250 a month car payment. I was like, shoot, that pays most of my car payment for me. Or it can pay my daughter's voice and piano lessons, or that's a hell of a nice date night or day out for me and my husband. So we started to realize that passive income was the way. And over the years, now we have a total of 9 rental properties. And you guys, our 9 rental properties makes us just as much as my husband's 22-year retirement passively from rentals, which is absolutely crazy. So when I come at you and I'm talking about making the short-term sacrifice, if you're not someone who's willing to make short-term sacrifice for long-term, potentially life-changing gains, again, you don't need to be here, because that is what I'm talking about. That is what we're discussing. Whether it's a short-term sacrifice of getting rid of your big-ass dining room table that doesn't fit in your small-ass Hawaii home, that dining room table is never going to make you any fucking money. That's the bottom line. Unless it's like a family antique or got some sort of sentimental value, fine, exceptions. But if it is just a Ashley dining table that you bought 3 duty stations ago, fucking get rid of that shit. I don't care that you like it. It's not making you any money. It's not working for you. You know what the difference between the wealthy and the middle class is? The wealthy think of dollars in terms of little soldiers. How can those little soldiers work hard for you? They can work hard for you by buying you something that historically is gaining value year over year for almost the last 40 years, not holding on to a dining table and not moving into post where your dining table fits, because that dining table in that on-post house is never going to make you any money. It's never going to get you anything. So that is something that we're going to be talking about and unpacking a lot in also, again, future episodes. But that's sort of me in a nutshell. That is what put me on this path. That is why I'm so passionate about this. I've made the short-term sacrifices myself. My first house here, I hated. I could literally reach across the house and almost touch both walls. We went from 3,200 square feet to barely 1,500 square feet. I could reach across my fence and touch my neighbor's house. I could hear their parrots. They had birds. I could hear these birds talking from their house into my house with my windows closed. I get it. I've made the short-term sacrifices. I know, but I also know that the short-term sacrifices got me the long-term gain of now being able to say that I am a millionaire. My family has generational wealth. Our children will have investments that go to them when we pass that will make them less worried about their futures and have tangible things that bring them more assets. And that is what I want for every military family that I reach out to and talk to. Even if you don't do it on that scale, even if you just buy one house here, sell it when you leave, and go on to your next duty station and buy another house. Like, you don't have to have a real estate empire. That's not the goal, but the goal is just to at least get you educated. And the goal is to let you know who I am and where I'm coming from, because again, I've lived a lot of my professional life in those Facebook pages where people throw things out there. People say, oh, you're going to have a $900 electric bill when you're here in Hawaii, but they don't quantify it or they don't give you context. Like I could sit here all day and say, you should buy a house, but that's not as impactful as you should just buy a house because, and then tell you everything that I just told you. I have the background and the validity and the credentials and the experience to be talking about these things, to be giving this advice, to be answering these questions. You're going to see someone post something on Facebook. You don't know their background or who they are or why they're qualified to be giving you that information. Their electric bill could have been $900, but it could be because they keep their house at 65 degrees and they have their Christmas lights on and they had family visiting and their air conditioner is 30 years old. You know, any number of qualifying factors that they're not going to dive into. They're just going to bitch that their electric bill is high. And then it causes you to be like, well, I don't want a high electric bill, so I'm not going to buy a house. But you don't always have all the information. So that's why this first episode was of paramount importance for me to ramble a little bit about who I am, why the hell you should listen to me, what makes me qualified. I really strive to be relatable, you guys. I am just a fucking person. I put my pants on one leg at a time. Yeah, I have this cute backdrop. If I flipped the camera around, I'm in my bedroom. My bed is half-assed made. My dog is sleeping on the floor at my feet. You might have heard my husband going in and out of the house downstairs because, you know, we played pickleball this morning and he's down there talking about how he beat everybody's ass. Like, I am just a person, but I am a person that's probably been somewhere similar to where you are. And I probably have a lot of information that's helpful. So if you think that's true, and if you've enjoyed this episode, I would say tune in for my next episode in about 2 weeks. Again, I'm not about gatekeeping. I have had a lot of things on my mind that I want to discuss and talk about. My next episode, I'm actually just going to pull off the Band-Aid, guys, and we're going to talk about the biggest fuck up and mistake that I have ever made in my professional career, because that's important, because it hasn't been all, 33 houses in 1 year and you're like, oh my God, and that was amazing. But I've also made mistakes, and learning from other people's mistakes hopefully means that you don't have to make the same type or in the same way or as bad of fuck up as somebody else made. And I'm not just here to share the good. I'm here to share the good, the bad, the ugly, the fortunate, the unfortunate. So we're going to dive into, and I'm going to candidly talk about, in a constructive way, the biggest mistake that I have made in my professional career over the last 7 years. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope to see you next time. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all of those things. It means a lot. I wouldn't be anywhere without all of you. Thanks. Bye.